am Vlad, son of Dracula. You call me Dracula. Some say I am a monster. I do not care. To mine, I am a shield. History will argue over which one I was, but history wasn't there when the Ottomans came. 6 years. That's how long I held the throne of Wallachia, against an empire that swallowed kingdoms whole. This is what it took. 20,000 corpses, impaled on stakes outside my capital. The mighty Sultan himself vomited and turned back. My father's killers, impaled in front of their families at an Easter feast. My father avenged, my throne mine, my people safe, behind walls I built with blood. But I was betrayed. Did I win? Monster to some, shield to mine. Decide for yourself. Wallachia didn't pass the throne from father to son. It was taken, bought with gold or blood, whichever you had more of. I was born into that world, Sigashora, in 1431, a fortress town in Transylvania. My father didn't have a throne yet. The year I was born, he joined the Order of the Dragon, knights sworn to fight the Ottoman Turks. They gave him a name for it, Dracula, the dragon. In our tongue, it also means devil, so I became Dracula, son of the dragon, son of the devil. Take your pick, both fit. Before I could even read, I learned one fundamental truth. Loyalty was bought with fear. I was 11 when my father made a deal with the Turks. They took me and my brother Radu as hostages. 6 years in an Ottoman cage. They wanted to remake us into servants of the Sultan. Radu bent immediately, smiled at his captors. Within a year, he was dining at the Sultan's table. I refused. Every single day, they whipped me, locked me in darkness. Once, they branded my arm to remind me who I belonged to, but I couldn't kneel. My hatred burned too deep. I watched my little brother, the boy I'd promised to protect, learn to love the men who caged us. And I learned something else. The Turks ruled through terror, impalement, flaying, burning villages to ash. Slow, deliberate, theatrical. Fear is a blade. Wield it, or it cuts you. I would use it better than they ever did. I was 16 when word reached me in my cell. My father and older brother Mircea, murdered. Hungarian-backed rebels stormed the palace, buried my father alive, tortured Mircea for hours before burning him alive. When they told me, I felt cold. Radu wept. I stared at the wall. My father knew how to take power, but he let vipers nest in his court. Internal rot killed him. Now the Turks saw their chance. A rage-filled teenage prince with no throne, and a blood debt. I could be useful. Sultan Murad called me in, the same man who'd kept me in chains for 6 years. Looked me over like a dog he was deciding whether to feed. I wanted to kill him, right there. But I needed him more than I hated him, and he knew it. Your father's throne is empty, he said. I can give you an army. You take back Wallachia and hold it for me. I heard what he didn't say. You'll owe me, forever. I swallowed my pride, nodded. I would have agreed to anything. I wanted that throne more than I wanted my next breath. He gave me cavalry, Turkish veterans. During the ride back, I imagined what I'd do to my family's killers. My second cousin Vladislav sat on my throne, but he was out fighting in Kosovo. The capital was undefended, so I just walked into Targoviste and sat upon my father's throne. 17 years old, voivode of Wallachia, but the boyars who'd killed my father were still in my court, smiling, bowing. I wanted to stake them all, but I couldn't, not yet. 60 days, that's all I got. Vladislav came back with a bigger army. My Turkish mercenaries weren't dying for a teenager. I ran. I fled to Moldavia. My uncle Bogdan gave me refuge. I met my cousin Stephen there, sharp, hungry. We understood each other. Then my uncle was killed, in his own palace, while I slept, 3 doors down. I looked at Stephen across Bogdan's body. We both knew we were next. We fled to Hungary, to John Hunyadi, the man who killed my father. I had 3 choices: become the Ottomans' dog like Radu, die in Moldavia's civil war, or kneel to my father's killer. I waited 3 days before he'd see me. Every hour was a humiliation. When Hunyadi finally called me in, he didn't look up from his maps. Vlad Dracula, Dracula's son, the one the Turks caged. Yes, my lord. Not my lord. Not yet. You're here because you have nowhere else to go. I'm here because you need what I have. 6 years in Murad's court. I know how Mehmed thinks. Your father played both sides, betrayed everyone. My father is dead because of it. Yes, I made sure of that. The rage came up so fast I tasted copper. My hand went to where a sword should have been, but I'd been disarmed at the door. Hunyadi smiled. You hate me. Good. Vladislav has your throne. I need a replacement, a weapon, one that will do exactly what I tell it to do. He studied my face. Can you be that? Every part of me wanted to say no, but my father died screaming in a ditch. Yes, I can be that. I sold myself to my father's killer. 3 years I served him. Then Constantinople fell. In 1456, Mehmed laid siege to Belgrade. Hunyadi marched to break it and left Wallachia undefended. Before he left, guard the southern passes. And if opportunity presents itself, Hunyadi smiled, then be the dragon's son. Hunyadi shattered the siege, then died of plague 3 weeks later. I was already crossing the border. I crossed into Wallachia with a small Hungarian cavalry. Vladislav was returning from Kosovo. We met near Turkshor. He could have retreated or called for reinforcements. Instead, he sent a rider. Single combat. The throne to the victor. Exactly what I was hoping for. We faced each other in front of both armies. No armor, just blades. I'd spent 8 years imagining this, standing over him, blood on my hands, crown at my feet. Victory at 25 years old. Finally. This is mine, I said to no one. To everyone. To God himself, if he was listening. I picked up the crown and placed it on my head. The boyars who'd killed my father were still alive, still in Târgoviște, still smiling. Not for long, but I couldn't move against them yet. Not immediately. I spent my first months buying time and building walls. Stone walls around my cities and walls of loyal men around me. I promoted peasants who owed me everything and rebuilt Panari's fortress high in the mountains, my final refuge. The boyars watched me, thinking I was playing their game. They were wrong. It was time for a feast. I invited them all to Târgoviște for Easter. 200 nobles, their families. A grand feast to celebrate the new reign. They came because they had to. Refusing would have been an admission. I watched them play the game they'd played with every king before me. I let them eat, drink, get comfortable. Then I stood. The hall went quiet. I have a question, a simple one. How many kings have you outlived? Silence. Then nervous laughter. They thought it was a joke. No, truly. You, I pointed to an old boyar in the front. How many reigns have you survived? He swallowed. 7, my lord. 7. I nodded. Looked at another. And you? 30. Voivode. Perhaps more. 30. I smiled. Impressive. You must be very skilled at survival. They smiled back, still thinking this was theatre. My father survived one reign, his own. My brother Mircea survived none. Do you know why? No one answered. Because you killed them. The smiles died. You, all of you, stood by and let it happen, or helped, or smiled. Guards stepped from the shadows, surrounded the hall. My lord, please, one of them started. The old among you, you won't have to wait long. The older boyars, the ones who'd actually done the deed, were dragged outside. By dawn, dozens of bodies impaled across the courtyard. The younger ones, the sons and nephews who'd merely inherited the guilt, I gave them a different sentence. March. March where, my lord? I pointed north. Poenari. You're going to rebuild my fortress, every stone, every wall. And when it's done, if you survive, you'll be free. They marched 50 miles in their Easter silks. By the time they arrived, their silks were rags, their feet bled. Months later, half were dead from exhaustion. I impaled the rest. Call it cruelty. I know it was justice. While I was purging Wallachia, Stephen was fighting for Moldavia. He sent word asking for help. I didn't hesitate. I sent him the men he needed to win. And he did. In a world of vipers, you must protect your own pack. He became the one ally I could truly trust. The boyars were handled, but Wallachia's problems ran deeper. Crime everywhere. I changed that. Steal, you lose your hand. Cheat a customer, you rot on a stake beside common thieves. The stake didn't discriminate. I left a golden cup by the public fountain in Târgoviște. Right there, in the square where anyone could take it. It sat there for years, untouched. Fear is the only law that never sleeps. For the first time in decades, my people were safe. Order isn't gentle, it is survival. But not everyone learned. The Transylvanian Saxons sheltered my rivals, Dan, Basarab Laiota, my own half-brother. Anyone who challenged me, they'd give sanctuary. In 1459, I crossed into Transylvania. I burned Brasov. The stakes rose on the hills outside their towns, hundreds of them, bodies visible for miles. News of me began to spread. Stories of me dining among the corpses, dipping bread in blood. They carved woodcuts, printed pamphlets, made me into a demon. And you know what? It worked. The Saxons stopped sheltering my enemies. The pretenders stopped coming. For 3 years I'd paid tribute to the Sultan. But by 1460, everything changed. Mehmed declared Wallachia part of the Ottoman Empire, as if my throne were his to claim with words. He demanded I come to Constantinople and bow. Instead, I sent his envoys back with their turbans nailed to their skulls. He sent a general to bring me in chains. I put him on the tallest stake I could find. Then, in the dead of winter, I crossed the Danube myself. I burned his empire from Serbia to the Black Sea, and I wrote to Christendom boasting of the 23,000 Turks I killed. I thought I'd broken them, but Mehmed wasn't done. He raised an army, 150,000 men, the largest Ottoman force since Constantinople fell. I had 20,000, 30 at most. I couldn't win a pitched battle, couldn't defend cities, so I didn't try. I evacuated everyone and destroyed everything behind me, scorched earth, poisoned wells, burned anything the Ottomans could use. I sent men infected with plague into Turkish camps, men already dying, serving Wallachia one last time. But it wasn't enough. His army was too massive. The night before my attack, I walked into their camp alone, dressed as one of them. I spoke Turkish, moved like I belonged, warmed my hands at their fires while they joked about what they'd do when they caught me. I found the Sultan's tent, memorized every detail. learned his soldiers were ordered to stay in their tents at night, no matter what. Perfect. I walked out the way I came, past 100 campfires, past 10,000 men who wanted my head. None of them saw me. I struck on the night of June 16th. A few thousand of my best men, dressed as Ottomans, speaking Turkish. In the darkness, we were ghosts. We cut through the camp, hunting for Mehmed's tent. I knew exactly where it should be. I'd counted the steps myself. But camps shift, and in the chaos, smoke, screaming, thousands of men running, I couldn't find the landmarks I'd memorized. We hit the vizier's tents instead, killed thousands, set the camp ablaze. 1 hour, 15,000 Turks dead, 5,000 of mine. But the Sultan, untouched. I'd been so close. One tent, one knife thrust, and I missed him, in the darkness. By dawn, we retreated to the mountains. Mehmed was so shaken his generals had to talk him out of retreating across the Danube entirely. Mehmed's army reached Târgoviște in late June, completely empty. He must have thought he'd won, that Wallachia was his. His scouts rode ahead, returned pale, refused to speak, just pointed. The smell hit them before they saw anything. 20,000 bodies, impaled on stakes in concentric circles around the city. Men, women, children. Some had been there for weeks. Others were still fresh. The stake entered low, avoided the heart and lungs. You could live for days that way. I wanted them to. I wanted the screams to carry across the Danube. Most were dead now, but some were still dying. Hamza Bey, the general I'd killed months before, rotted on the tallest stake at the center. His corpse faced the road from Constantinople, a greeting. Mehmed, the conqueror of Constantinople, who'd seen 1,000 battlefields, vomited. He turned his horse and couldn't look. Some deserted that night, just walked away. Most whispered I was the devil's son in truth. The forest of stakes broke something in Mehmed. His army was sick, starving, demoralized. He'd marched 150,000 men into Wallachia and found nothing but corpses and empty cities. He wanted to leave, but he couldn't go home empty-handed, not after all of this. So he declared my brother Radu the rightful voivode of Wallachia, gave him Ottoman gold and soldiers. Then Mehmed retreated across the Danube. This was now a war between brothers. Radu came with promises, amnesty for the nobles, an end to the terror, peace with the Ottomans. And Wallachia started to break. Men I'd trusted began slipping away. Nobles who'd survived my purges saw their chance. Entire garrisons went silent. The boy I'd protected in that Ottoman cell, the one who'd learned to smile at his captors while they whipped me, was now trying to take my throne. We fought through the summer, through autumn, battle after battle, but Radu had endless resources, Ottoman gold, fresh troops, and my own people, bleeding away one desertion at a time. While I was fighting Radu in the south, the Ottomans came for Puanari, my fortress on a cliff 400 meters above the Argeș River. My wife was there. I'd left her in the safest place I knew. I was miles away, fighting, winning battles that didn't matter. A loyal archer saw the Ottomans approaching. He shot an arrow through her window with a message. They're coming. Run. But there was nowhere to run. The fortress was surrounded. Ottoman soldiers climbing the paths. Radu's men blocking the valley. She stood on the tower, 400 meters of empty air between her and the river. The Ottomans were closing in. So, she chose the river. I wasn't there to stop her. I was fighting for a throne I'd already lost. They say the river ran red with her blood. The locals call it Rul Doamne now. The Ladies' River. I learned about it 3 days later. A messenger. Stumbling words. My lord, Poenari has fallen. Your wife. Another person I couldn't protect. Another wall that didn't hold. They took my fortress, my wife. Everything but my name. By October, I had nothing left. Radu won. I fled north, to Transylvania, to Matthias Corvinus, the man whose father had killed mine, but also my ally, the leader of the crusade I joined, the king I'd bled for, while Europe made promises and did nothing. I thought he'd help me. We met in his court. Matthias listened, nodded, asked questions about Radu, about the Ottomans, about what I needed. Then his guards arrested me. Treason, he said, against Christendom. He held up letters, forged ones, claiming I'd been working with the Turks all along. I'd killed 23,000 Ottomans. I'd held the line while Europe watched. I'd lost everything fighting them. And Matthias called me a traitor. He needed an excuse. The Pope was asking questions. Where was the gold collected for the Holy War? Matthias had spent it on his own campaigns, so he needed a villain, someone to blame. The German woodcuts had already done the work. The stories of Vlad the Impaler dining among corpses, dipping bread in blood. Europe already believed I was a demon. Matthias just had to point. He sent letters to every court in Europe. I caught the monster. I saved Christendom from Vlad Dracula. And they believed him, betrayed again. This time, by the man whose father killed mine. They locked me in Visegrad Castle, caged in Hungary, again. I was 29. I'd already lost everything, twice. The first years were actual prison, guards, chains, darkness. They say I impaled mice, caught birds, and cut off their heads. Maybe I did. Even in a cage, I couldn't forget what I was. Later, house arrest. Matthias offered a deal. Convert to Catholicism. Marry his cousin. Play the domesticated prince. I said yes. I wanted to live. I married Ilona Silagi. We had 2 sons. I watched them grow behind those walls. Taught them to read, to fight. Told them stories of a country they'd never seen. I tried to love them. But all I could see were hostages. Years passed. Radu ruled my throne. I waited, played the reformed prince, the convert, the family man. But I never stopped being Vlad Dracula. In 1475, Radu died. Plague, they said. Stephen of Moldavia, my cousin, my one true ally, requested my release. He was fighting the Ottomans and needed experienced commanders. After 13 years, the door opened. I walked out into sunlight, 44 years old. My sons were nearly grown. My country had forgotten me, but I was breathing. I fought in Matthias's campaigns. I was older, slower, but the stakes still rose wherever I marched. Some things don't change. In July of 1476, Stephen faced a massive Ottoman force. I rode to help him. We held, barely. Afterward, Stephen looked at me across the battlefield. Both of us covered in blood and mud. Both of us still alive somehow. Take it back, he said. Wallachia. It's time. In November of 1476, I crossed the border with Stephen Bathory, a Hungarian commander, and his forces. These were my mountains, my roads, but nothing looked the same. November 8th, we took Târgoviște, the city I'd fortified. November 16th, Bucharest fell, the fortress I'd built on the southern plains. November 26th, they placed the crown on my head, the third and final time. I stood in that hall again, 14 years of surviving for one more chance, 1 month. That's all I got. Basarab Lyota, one of the Saxon pretenders, returned with an Ottoman army bigger than mine. My men were exhausted from months of campaigning. We met near Bucharest in the dead of winter. I was 45 years old. I'd been outnumbered before. The fighting was chaos, snow, blood, men screaming in 3 languages. I died in that chaos, in a ditch outside Bucharest. Whether it was Turkish blades or my own men in the confusion, does it matter? Dead is dead. They cut off my head, sent it to Constantinople. Mehmed was already gone. His son Bayezid received it instead. They pickled my head in honey, paraded it through the streets. The boy who'd refused to kneel, reduced to a trophy in a jar. My body went to Snagov Monastery. Centuries later, they opened the tomb. Empty. Even in death, no one could agree where I belonged. To the west, I am the devil's son. Monster, bloodthirsty tyrant. They made me into a demon, and the world believed it. To Romanians, I am Vlad Țepeș, the impaler, yes, but also the shield, the man who held the line when an empire came, who made the road safe, who refused to kneel. History keeps both names. I held Wallachia for 6 years, against an empire that swallowed kingdoms whole. 20,000 stakes, a forest that made the Sultan vomit. I came within minutes of killing Mehmed in his tent, but I lost everything. My throne, my wife, my brother, my life. Was it worth it? The question is meaningless. I held the line. For 6 years, Wallachia stood when it should have fallen. The Ottomans learned that some thrones don't bend. That fear cuts both ways. My people had roads they could walk without terror. Justice, brutal but real. Walls that held for 6 years. Then it all burned anyway. You can't stop empires. You can only make them bleed, make them remember, make them think twice before they come for the next small country that dares to say no. I am Vlad, son of Dracula, and I did what it took. Thanks for sticking with me through this one. It's my first video like this, and it was a ton of work. I'm figuring this out as I go, but I'll keep getting better. If you found this interesting, please consider hitting subscribe and let me know what you thought in the comments. Seriously, hearing from you is incredibly motivating when you're just starting out. What story should I tell next?